All right, welcome back. We're going to talk about naming ionic compounds today. So this is when we have a formula and we want to turn it into a name of a substance. The ionic naming system is also called the stock naming system. So we will refer to that system using both names, either the ionic naming system or the stock naming system. And we have two basic types of compounds. We have either binary, the prefix bi means two, and we also have ternary, which means three or more. If you happen to be ternary ionic, you're going to have a polyatomic ion. Poly means many, atomic atom, so a many atom ion, such as nitrate, phosphate, sulfate, all those ions we learned during our ion quizzes. So either binary ionic, which is just two atoms, a metal to a nonmetal, or ternary ionic, which is going to be three or more atoms all together into one formula. So here's our basic rule. You're going to split your formula after the cation, which we're going to basically have is after the metal. And then you're going to name each ion. So name the cation, name the anion. For nonmetals, it's going to be just the atom's name with an IDE ending. If it's a polyatomic ion, whatever the name of the ion is, that's its name. So if it's SO4, you're going to call it sulfate. If it's SO3, sulfite. If it's NO2, nitrite. NO3, nitrate. If it's just S, sulfide. And that's why we learned all these ions back during our ion quizzes. The metal is just going to be the metal's name, so that's pretty simple. Here's a basic flow chart of how this works. You're going to split the formula after the metal. If it happens to have three or more atoms, then you're going to have a polyatomic ion. Use your resource in the back of your periodic table and look it up, or if you happen to have it memorized, just use that. So name your metal, name the polyatomic ion. If it's just two atoms, it's going to be just the metal's name, and then the nonmetal's name with an IDE ending. So here are some example problems of how we go through and do some ionic naming. On the board I have sodium symbol and S symbol. So I have to find the metal. Now the metal is always going to be on the left-hand side of the formula. So split it after the left-hand side. And then I only have 2 atoms. Yes, there's a subscript on the Na, but I don't want to count that as multiple atoms. It's just 2 copies of sodium. So I have Na and I have S, 2 atoms. So I don't have 3 or more atoms in this case. Then I'm just going to name the Na. Na is called sodium. And S is called sulfur, but because it's a nonmetal, I'm going to put IDE at the end, so sulfide, which is the same name of the ion that you learned for your ion quizzes. So this formula, this compound is called sodium sulfide. The next one, I'm going to find my metal, magnesium. It's on the left-hand side. And then this time I count my atoms, 1, 2, 3. 3 or more atoms. This has a polyatomic ion. Now, the polyatomic ions for our class are going to always be on the right-hand side. And you can clearly see that it's multiple atoms stuck together. This is the PO4, which you all learned. So we're going to call Mg what it is. It's called magnesium. The metal atom's name doesn't change. And then we're going to call the PO4 what we learned that is, or you can look it up on the back of your periodic table on the resource. It's called phosphate. So this would be called magnesium phosphate. Finally, KNO3, find your metal, then count your atoms. 1, 2, 3 different atoms. There must be a polyatomic ion. That's right here, your PAI. K, it's the metal, gets its full name, potassium. And then on the back of your resource, or you have it memorized, NO3 is called nitrate. So that's called potassium nitrate. That's how you name ionic formulas into a name. It's as simple as naming the 2 ions. As soon as you find the 2 ions by splitting after the metal, it's pretty easy. Just look up those names on your periodic table. So what you should have learned after watching this video is how to identify what kind of ionic compound you have. Is it a binary, 2 atoms, like the top example here, or a ternary, like the bottom 2, 3 or more atoms. And then you should know the rules that you split after the metal, give your metal name, whatever it happens to be, just name it the same, and give your nonmetal or your anion, your negative ion, whatever name it happens to be. If it's a nonmetal, it's the IDE style name. Hope that helps.